Shirley, welcome. Shirley Hodges, welcome to Dansby Family Wellness Show, podcast, whatever it may be. It's basically a show where I bring experts on and people in the field that's highly experienced, parents that have 6 kids or been through trauma or whatever it may be. Just someone I feel like that's really intelligent and really experienced in a way that can shed, perspective, insight, expertise in a way. And I always start with what's your history? What's your from birth till like now in regards of your experiences growing up and how it shaped you to be psychiatrist, right? Is that correct?
Counselor. I'm a master's level
Counselor.
counselor.
Counselor. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's even better in a way. Yeah. So that right there is, where I like to, that's why I brought you on as your counselor. And I love your perspective. Shirley was a coaching client of mine, and she did incredible. She did all the work and had great results. But I saw and like I could pick up on things that you know I learned the hard way through trauma, and I saw the way you handled things and you approached and just your way of life and the way you kind of pick up and are you're aware and you listen to people and you're approachable and you are empathetic and obviously a great counselor because of that. So just give us a background on like your birth till now and why you become a counselor and what shaped you into that.
Well, I was born in the South, and had a pretty good home life. Things were not too rocky for me at home. Had parents that are still married, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's that. But I always wanted to help people. And so when I was 12 years old, I had a project at school for the gifted program that I was in. And the project involved us doing some research, finding somebody to interview in a field that we wanted to go into. I was not interested at that point in being a counselor. I wanted to be a missionary. And there wasn't a career code for a missionary. So my teacher helped me to look in the career codes book, I guess, and find a something else where I could help people. And so counseling was it. So I was able to interview a psychologist that actually worked really close to where I grew up. And from that point on, that's been my life goal, is to be a therapist and to help people. So yeah, that's that.
Wow, that's amazing. And you've worked for a couple different at like facets of counseling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So right now I'm in community mental health. Historically, I've worked at a Christian counseling center as well.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So mostly, my understanding is you mostly work with kids, and that's your desired specialty, and that's where you're doing now, right?
That's what I'm doing now. It didn't start out with, that's not what I originally wanted to do, but that was where I was placed. So I feel like I'm living the dream now. I really love what I do.
That's incredible.
I've worked at I've worked at my current agency for almost 2 years. February will be 2 years.
That's awesome. I'm glad you found something you really enjoy, and you're getting what you find in your way. And sometimes plans don't always work out what we imagine or what we want, but sometimes it's a better surprise and better detour than what we experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So my biggest question bringing you on is like when you're working with kids or you're working with parents, because I'm gonna naturally go to my audience, and what's the best way to handle trauma and like of course counseling, but how do you get your kid in that? It's kind of awkward saying from my perspective, which I don't know because I don't have a traumatized kids, but I was traumatized as a kid, and I really think counseling could have helped me grow up and adjust that trauma and the way it shaped me or messed me up in a way, and I had to heal that, and I was traumatized hard. So what would be the best way to approach like a kid going through a hard thing or parents that are going through something hard and the effects that it has on the family wellness and mental wellness?
I would say the biggest thing is people want to know that they're heard. So if you can maintain an open relationship with a child as they're walking through something difficult, you stand a lot better chance of um, helping them heal faster. So, I think a lot of times the problem with parents and kids is that their parents are too close to the situation to necessarily lend an ear to a child. I know that that's been my experience as a parent myself. A lot of times I wasn't the best listener. um, my stepson would want to talk about problems that he was having, and sometimes I just couldn't hear it. I couldn't be there for him in that way. So that's why it's nice to have somebody from the outside, to be able to listen and plug into what your kid needs to talk about.
Gotcha. So it kind of helps with someone that is not emotionally connected, or you don't have those like, if I say this, I'm gonna get in trouble or not situations.
Yeah, exactly. So it's nice to have a mentor or a therapist to talk with. I think there's a lot to be said for those sacred helpers um, outside of a profession. Like I think a basketball coach can help a kid in more ways than just helping them learn basketball. A teacher can be a huge advocate for a kid. There are teachers that I come across now who clip their kids' fingernails and bring them new shoes to school when they don't have what they need. So, there's just huge ways that the community can really reach out and help kids as well. It doesn't have to be through a professional person, but of course, if those things aren't enough to heal, to help deal with the trauma, then seeking professional help is always it's always my go-to when I run out of other options. It's kind of the last thing that I want to do, but personally, I seek counseling when I need counseling. It's just like going to the doctor for me. So,
Gotcha. Well, that's a great, awesome philosophy. I like that because you're not immediately going to counseling, and you've shown people that the community raises children. We have to raise each other's children in a way, and that helps with, if somebody notices, your neighbor is going through a rough thing, we should reach out and help each other, because that makes a bigger impact up front, and that can lessen the effects or the avoidance of therapy. Because I know, as a kid, I didn't like to talk about, the drugs my mom were doing, or the many different guys that she was with, or boyfriends, or whatever that may be. And if I had someone to talk to, and it was a coach for me, he helped me a lot. So yeah, I can definitely relate to that. And I still think I should have gotten a counselor and got some professional help, because that would have directly, sped things along and helped me take the trauma out of the memories that I had with my mom. And my dad being in prison, there wasn't a structural situation that was, there's my dad, there's my mom. But that's awesome that you progressively recommend treatment. So once you get to that situation where you have a parent, is it normally parents that talk to you, or are they referred through kids? What's the ratio normally whenever you get a new patient, or how's that go?
right now, I serve families and children, so it's kind of 50-50.
Gotcha. Okay, that's interesting. It's good to know that they both work together. I know, stereotypically speaking, because that's how we, as a viewer would be in this situation. They think of therapy as, or counseling is, there's something wrong with me or wrong with my child, and I have to go get them fixed. And I wish that would break that just dogmatic, just terrible way of looking at therapy, because I want people to see it as proactive in, say something happened, or the kid is just, say, troubled, and they need to, you know, adjust better socially and connect better socially, or they're, underprivileged, or the opportunity is just not there. My main point is, you know, a therapist or a counselor can help integrate them and help them speak and be heard, like you said. So my biggest thing that I want people to say, and what I didn't hear, was counseling, therapy, and spiritual healers like that is the best way to, get people through that, or get them, because a lot of kids get closed off and they just compartmentalize. I did that, and I just, distracted myself. But I, my first thing when everybody talks about therapy that I'm around is something's wrong and we got to fix it. And I think it should be proactive. What do you feel like? Do you deal with more people that are in the proactive stage, or the reactive of something's really wrong and we got to fix it? What's your approach and your experience with it?
Well, I'm kind of like you. I encourage people to seek help when they run out of coping skills. That's kind of what I teach, what I help people to learn is communication skills, coping skills, how to calm your body down when it's upset. Um, and then, of course, we talk through bad things that have happened. But a lot of times it's just teaching those coping skills and helping them to kind of almost to normalize that bad things happen to a lot of people, like upsetting and confusing events happen to a lot of people. So a lot of kids their age have probably been through similar circumstances, and it doesn't have to define them. So, we work on like meaning making and that kind of thing. So a lot of times the people that I see, it may be reactive, um, but I try to really take a proactive approach regardless of why they're there. And I was just talking about this at lunch today that perspective is everything in my field, in my opinion. If we think that people are going to get better, they're going to get better. If we
Yeah,
think
right.
they're going to stay sick, they're going to stay sick. So I try to envision the families and children that I serve growing up and moving past whatever has been their past. I try to envision them in the best light possible in the future, and then work with them until we realize some of those goals, until some of those things become their reality. Um, it's a person-centered approach, so that means their goals matter more than my goals. So, in fact, their goals are the only ones that matter.
Wow. So it's
So,
patient.
we
Yeah.
work toward. Yeah, yeah, we work towards what they need, what they want. Um, so sometimes there's a conflict between parent and children in that situation. Um, and so I have to kind of work through that and help families communicate with one another a little bit better. So,
It sounds like the parent child relationship is critical to get right. And because when you start with be heard, it seems like we are, as parents, we're telling our kids this is this, or this is you're like this, or, and we get in that you mentality. And that happened to me. And, that was very hard as a young kid to handle. You're a hypochondriac, or, you're this, or you're lazy, or whatever it may be. And it's really, I like your proactive, but be heard. Like, listen to the kid, not just tell the kid how they are because of what you see. And that would help a lot of parents in actually hearing the kid, and getting to know the kid in a way that they could know what's going on and feel comfortable to talk. And I really believe a lot of parents, like the saying is, hurt people. And
mhm.
that right there, a lot of parents need to hear, like, okay, maybe you're hurt, maybe you wasn't raised perfectly, which I don't know any kid that was, but the parents did the best they could. But
Right.
realize and be aware that you could be shaped by some trauma, and not, be the best parent because of that. Because and do you agree that we should handle our trauma before we mix it up with our kid in a way, mix our trauma with theirs, and be, you know, crazy with them, I guess.
A lot easier said than done,
Yeah.
you know? And
Mhm.
sometimes traumatic things happen to adults too that shape us and affect us. I mean, personally, my own personal experience of trauma was one of the reasons that led me to, you passing out in my bathroom floor due to just my health kind of falling apart. My body fell apart. And so at that point, I was a stepmom to a 13-year-old. So there was no place for me to heal from that away from my family. We were just in it together. And so yeah, ideally for sure, get help all along the way. But it's just a lot easier said than done, I think. And I also think, again, from my own experience, children trigger things that you don't know are there
Right.
until you run across them. So it's hard to kind of conquer all those triggers when you don't even know it's going to happen until you're in the middle of a situation and you're going, huh, man, I shouldn't have reacted that way. Or I just saw my mom in the mirror, you know.
Yeah.
I just, it's like pointing and you're going, is this my mom's finger or is this mine? Or
Yeah.
is this my dad's finger?
Right.
It's just kind of figuring out. Yeah, I tend to think people are doing the best they can.
No doubt.
And so that goes for parents too. Parents are doing the best they can. So I try to partner with them as opposed to should or judge or blame. I don't should on them. I try to not judge them. Of course, that also is easier said than done. But I really try to get in their shoes and understand some of their background, their history, so that we can walk through it together.
That's powerful. It sounds like you make a safe space for that's external from the family environment and like home or school or whatever the normal activities are. They get a different space with you that's safe from outside judgment, outside input, but you have a safe space so they can be someone that is in a healing process. And I believe everybody should look at counseling, therapy. I mean, if you're working directly with a doctor in a doctor's office or a health coach or wherever that may be, I've found that the best experience myself and with clients is when we create like partner with the patient client, we create a safe space where they feel relaxed, comfortable, confidential, respected, heard, and they're able to work through their own issues. Because I've learned, I know it's really helpful to have a mentor and a therapist, and it's like a guide, but you're the hero of your own story. And I've experienced like I can work through things by just talking to someone, just hear me. And whenever I can talk to a therapist or a counselor and they can just hear it, it's like the weight is lifted off my shoulders. I'm not carrying that rock. I get to let go and I can not, throw my cares to the world, but it's like someone can hear me and I'm not crazy or I'm not insane or I'm not suicidal or whatever that may be. And there's a lot of healing in just being heard by someone that is in control of themselves and the situation. They don't judge, they don't react to that person. They control it. And when you see that in some other human, you learn control of yourself. And I wish every kid that, I mean, if they have a traumatic wreck, they should, a car accident, just average person. I mean, people going to go through car accidents, but if they like break their arm in a car accident, I believe they should proactively, either with their parent, with other people that's been through it, or even proactively go to a counselor and say, look, this has kind of shook me up. I need somebody to process this better. And I think that should be normalized. And they should go to more counseling to proactively do it, which is a reactive situation. You are right. But, I also believe, and I feel like you're on the same page, which is really why I got you on, is because I believe not only in healing the trauma or the pain, but optimizing it and going further and further and further. And that's also pushed me in my health coaching to, I'm a total different coach from the time I worked with you until now. Like I've been able to evolve And I kind of have some guilt with that because my first few clients don't have as good as care as that I have now. But I remember you said one time to me for that was, people evolve. It's normal.
Right.
You,
Absolutely.
and that it helped me relax. So I kind of got some mini counseling in the middle of one of our sessions, but we're able to partner with each other and help one another and learn from that. And, one thing that is really heavy on my heart right now is kids and parents as well going through this shutdown, COVID. Yeah, it's scary. You're losing family members, people die. And in my eyes, it's shown us that we have been caught unprepared financially, but especially health wise. We just metabolically we just live. If we end up eating McDonald's, we eat McDonald's or whatever. I'm not saying that I do that or whatever, but just people go, it's life and I'll do better tomorrow. And that's the best way to be. But if you don't do better enough and do really eat good enough and take care of yourself well enough, something like COVID-19 can get you or get your family. And you brought it, and it's like put a lot of weight on a lot of people's shoulders, but also the mental
Mhm.
health of kids growing through this is very traumatically different from what I see because we have a lot of school through this, and I believe in
Mhm.
personal energy in the room, touch, and that's lacking. There's a lot of you know touch starved people right now, and I believe that
Right.
has a. Do you feel like that has a health effect on people, or?
Again, from my personal experience, I know that it does. Me, I ended up being isolated for probably 3 months here. Not that I didn't see anybody, but it wasn't anything normal. And so that was the last time I sought counseling was through COVID-19. Um, but I want to touch on a point that you made and bring it to COVID-19. So you talked about optimizing through the trauma, and I loved that you said that. I'm reading a book right now called The Happiness Advantage. Have you read that?
Mm-hmm.
It's really good, right?
Really good. Yep.
And one of the things I was listening to it last night, and one of the things that the author discusses is um, when soldiers go to war, they're told they'll either come back normal, like they are now, or they will come back with PTSD.
Yeah.
And there's no third path for them. There's no we grow through this. That we become better human beings because we've been through something difficult. Um, and a lot of times that is what happens. Soldiers come back from war and they love their families better. They recognize and honor life. They see time as a gift as opposed to taking it for granted the way that we tend to do as people. Um, and so in listening to that, I could really relate to some of those soldiers and my own trauma. Of course, I have never been to a war, and I've never, thankfully, seen anybody blown up in front of me or been through anything that challenging. But in my own challenges, I do feel like I grew through that, and like I'm a different human being, a better human being now than I was 4 years ago. I'm a better wife. I'm a better mom. I'm a better therapist.
Yeah.
I'm a better person, I feel like, um, as a direct result of going through the hard things, not just in the way that we grow, but in the way that coal becomes a diamond. I'm not saying I'm a diamond, but there was a refining process that I went through. So with COVID-19, you know, it is hard. It's a difficult thing we're going through. But I think as we shape the narrative, as we live out 2020, as we look for the beautiful moments in the middle of a global pandemic, that is how we teach our families that we live around, that we church with, that we go out to eat with, that we stay in and eat with,
Yeah.
that we holiday with, the children that we raise. Um, that's how we teach our community how to go through things and optimize through them is not having a toxic positive perspective, but instead looking for those moments that genuinely are good and genuinely help us.
Right.
There were a lot of times where during the real shutdown for me, there were a lot of times I made different choices health wise than I would have a year ago. There were a lot of times I made and there were better choices, right?
Yeah.
There were a lot of times that I listened to a book as opposed to watching television. I'm not saying I did that every time. And again, I ended up running out of coping skills and needing some help, finding my own way through that. But I do believe that we shape a lot of the narrative for the people that we're around. And so, yes, COVID-19 is hard. Yes, things are falling through the cracks. There's still a lot of beautiful moments that are happening. A lot of families, I think, coming together and realizing we got to do better. We got to be stronger. You know, we've missed out on 3 years with our kids because of this, because of baseball, because of ballet, because I had to serve on church committees, work, yes, everything. And so just kind of coming back to those basics and realizing, what are my priorities? God, family, then work, and then my personal things. I heard that in church today, that those were the first 4 priorities. And if they're not in that order, we're not going to function as well as we could. I think a lot of times it's very easy to get things out of order when we're just doing life like normal.
Yeah. You're right. And what I really want to bring that around in a health way and build on what you're saying, just pull it in a different direction a little bit, is we have something called a hormesis response, hormetic response. And hormesis is where you're exposed to something really extreme, maybe cold, trauma, stress, or, whatever, something extreme, mentally, emotionally, and you get stronger from being not way down. Like you said, it looked like, from my perspective, that it was stress that caused your body to break down and your health to deteriorate, and you passed out, and that stress was what caused it. And everybody wants to immediately say, well, maybe I got lupus, or I got this, or I got an autoimmune disease, or whatever it may be, cancer, whatever it is. And we always factor out that one thing called stress because we're tough. Mm-hmm. And I want people to respect it. Eustress is good stress for us. It makes you stronger, but distress, constant, causes a lot of problems. And these acute moments, and in the blip of life, a COVID-19, the global pandemic, is an acute moment. Yeah, it's lasting a lot longer than what we expected, but you're right. We can take this moment and we can make it a hormetic response so that we get stronger, and we have the eternal optimism and stoicism when we need it, and also the desire for a beautiful, healthy way and happy way to, even if it's different from what we know, we grow and adjust and adapt. And the hormetic response to stress is one of the greatest things to make you stronger. I mean, we can all, go get in the cold and get in an ice bath for 2-3 minutes every day, 5 minutes a day. And yes, you get stronger and things of that nature. But, the way you respond to life, and when it hits you, especially like you said with a parent, you don't get any hey, this is coming on Tuesday. Your kid's gonna, scream at you, or he's gonna run away, or he's gonna, whatever that may be. They may melt down. They may eat something that's not good. There's no preparation for it. But the way you handle those acute moments, you're right. We can shape how they see things that are handled, because the greatest thing I've learned in parenting is they do what you do, and how you act is how they act. You can talk all day and you can tell them to do this and that, but if you handle it wrong, they're going to do it the same way. And, my wife said something the other day that was real big, because, in the last 3 years, we've been through like divorce with her parents. Her mom got a brain cancer, and then her mom went to, bought a house, and she deteriorated, and she died from cancer. In the middle of that, my dog broke my wife's grandmother's foot and ankle real bad, and she's, in her 80s, and it was just a freak accident, but it all happened together. And at the same time, my wife was, violently hyperemesis, and she should have been hospitalized. So it was like just jam packed trauma. But now my wife, I'm bringing that back around to where my wife said, I got so mad today, I took a little toy and threw it against the wall, and I just threw it against the wall, and it just, got my frustration out. She said, I kind of feel bad because my kids saw that, like they really, yeah. I said, but that's real life. They
Yeah.
needed to see that. They needed to see, instead of screaming, instead of breaking down a wall, you find a way to cope, and you find a way to get that out, because they see me do things similar to that. I go out to my garage and I'll find something to beat on or to work on, and just wear myself out instead of being destructive. And they need to see that. I think kids shouldn't be sheltered from, you working, finding ways to work out stress in a constructive way, screaming into a pillow. I know that's manic behavior, but hiding that from a kid makes them think they can't, express themselves, and they have to hold in all the power, all of the big emotions. And they need to see a constructive way to handle the frustration and the sadness. And, with a counselor, with a parent, they need to see that correctly. And, one
Mm-hmm.
thing that helped me a lot was healing myself. Once I got through my trauma, I become a better parent. And once I got closer to God, and I was like, hey, this is where I'm wrong, God. Whenever I talk to Him, then I can show up as a better husband, father, and, I can be a better person. And I think everybody should be, there's a big thing around Christianity, and, you know, deny yourself and help others, and you give yourself everything to others, and, deny yourself. But really, what can you give somebody if you're hurt, if you got diabetes, or if, you know, you got anxiety, like crippling anxiety? How can you help somebody? It's,
Right.
I don't see where anyone can be helped. And, you know, to build and go through something like this, I believe there'll be people that have a hormetic response to it, and they get stronger. And, you know, that right there, we sometimes, I've noticed also, I don't know how your experience is with it, but things will happen to us like in childhood or even as adults. And it's kind of, we're dealing with like a little nagging this or maybe that, like a little ache and pain here and there, and then massive amount of stress hits, trauma happens, and then it just explodes on us. And that is critical, because then we start paying attention, like, whoa, I feel a little something here, or my stomach hurts when I eat this. It builds self-awareness. And I
Right.
mean, kids need that. But have you not noticed that, where if you deal with it ahead of time, you're proactive with it, that these little aches and pains don't explode as well, and we should get ahead of it, and like you said, be the happiness advantage. That book's really proactive, and it's really eye-opening to, you know, things are going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Deal with them, accept it,
Right.
and deal with them as they happen. Don't let it build up, but always be eternally optimistic, and that can help the most kids and families in a way that they can, grow through something like this. Because yeah, it's traumatic. It's sad that kids lost their senior
Mhm.
year, you know,
Yeah.
but I think they'll be better humans because of it long term. And what you said, if you think things are going to get worse, they are. If you think things are going to get better, they will. So, what is your advice to parents? And this whole talk has been advice to it, but if you had one thing to share with parents and children that may listen to this, what's your best advice going forward through this pandemic and finding that optimization? We can heal. That takes some time and practice, but what is the goal of optimizing the, acute trauma that we've experienced through COVID and through the shutdown and the isolation?
I would say help your family build healthy coping skills, and that's going to look different for each member of the family at different times. It'll look different at different ages, different at different times, and helping kids to recognize some of what they do already is coping skills. Play is work with kids.
Yeah.
Play is work. What their work is play. So.
Right.
Helping them to have lots of opportunities to play. Even the older kids need opportunities to play. And helping them to just recognize that sometimes taking a bike ride is a coping skill. That's been one of the things that's really come out of this for me. I'm sure you've seen it on my social media. I love riding my bike, and I haven't ridden my bike until June. I don't think I've ridden it in probably, 15, 16, 17 years. It's been a long time since that bike and I met. And I have a standing date with my bike on Saturday mornings. It's been my coping skill. It has been the one thing that has changed everything. I met with our favorite nurse practitioner this past week. And I was like, she asked me how I was doing, and I just said, I feel so good. I feel better than I've ever felt before. And she was like, what changed? And I was like, I really think it's just biking once a week for 3 or 4 hours has changed everything. It has changed everything.
That's awesome.
So it was really cool to find that. And it took months for me to figure out that's what I needed to do.
Right.
But just searching for that one thing. Or it could be a bunch of different things. I thought art would be the thing for me, but I haven't picked up a paintbrush, or I'm not an artist, but I found it therapeutic at one point. It wasn't anymore recently. So it's just not it for me right now. I need to be outside. So, it might come back around, who knows? But right now it's bike riding for me. So helping your kids, helping yourself find some coping skills, and giving yourself permission to do those things. I know a lot of times parents feel obligated to spend every free second with their children, but giving yourself some permission to take a 2-hour break. Ask one parent to watch the kids while you're out, or ask grandparents to watch the kids, or a friend that has a good healthy immune system if you're not wanting to spread the love right now. Just finding a way to, if you need space from your family, to get some of that space so that you can really reconnect with your own coping skills. And I love what you said about basically kids mirror what we do. There are mirror neurons that literally fire in your brain the same way that the other person in the room's neurons are firing. So, and that is what builds empathy, right? So that's how I feel what you feel, and you feel what I feel. So it's not unhealthy. It's totally normal. But the way that we handle things is going to be the way that our kids handle things. If we're anxious level 10 all the time, they're going to be anxious level 10.
Yeah.
So helping them to build coping skills really requires a lot of work on our own coping skills.
You're right. That's a great advice, and that's a great thing. And just a one word summary of that is everybody needs is movement. Find your movement. Find your, time to yourself to move. And I've known that, my mom and my grandmother and my great grandmother has been diagnosed with the bad mental illness of mentally disabled. And they went through some significant drugs, Prozac, SSRIs. They went through all that. And I watched that growing up, and I saw the manic and depressive and the schizophrenic episodes and the bipolar. And, what I saw, though, is they sat and they sulked, and they stayed sedentary. And I found that, I saw that, and I looked at it like, my grandmother died of cancer and I was very young when that happened. and my mom has got a severe mental disability. And, I watched all that and I thought, well, the drugs are not really working. That was just perspective. And I thought, well, what can I do? And I love sports and I love exercise, but I didn't deal with the trauma. But now that I've dealt with most of it and I've gotten, I'm not a diamond either in that regard, but I'm polishing on my coal. And that right there was big for me because now if I'm, mentally not right, if I'm frustrated or I'm disappointed or I'm sad or whatever, we just the normal emotions that we don't want to deal with. I found that I can cope with them the most by moving. If I can get up and get around and do something, just move my body, move myself, and it may be cleaning. I'll go clean a random wall just to get my body moving, get my mind. And I believe movement, that's the greatest advice that anybody, but they have to find their own bio individual movement that's therapeutic to them. Because some people, it may be bicycle, maybe swimming pool, it may be walking, it may be climbing. You never know, but your advice of, find what's best for you and respect people in their own bio individual way, that will help a lot of people because then they can respect each other and they not push each other in their own way. But that we making time for us making time for other parts of our family builds respect too, and empathy, of course, but respect. And that makes me feel heard just for the fact that you are doing your thing and I'm doing my thing, and then we come together, we're better for it. So I won't keep you on here
Right.
much longer, but I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your expertise and experience. And that's great advice personally from your own life as a stepmother, which that's very honorable and very noble of you. And I know that seems like an odd compliment, but it's very hard being a step parent in any way. It's hard having a step parent as a child. I can relate to that, and it's nothing personal, and it's nothing like they're bad or you're bad. It's just we're not blood. We're not the original connection. There's a deficit there. But when you can build a relationship over the gap that is naturally there, it seems to be some of the strongest relationships I've ever seen. And they're every kid in every step, and like divorced or whatever it may be, foster completely. That's really hard to do. And when someone can do it, it shows the way to shape and teach kids because they need it. And you definitely filled a gap there in your stepson's life. And I mean, I don't know his mom or that past or anything of that nature, but to have that and to do it, that's very honorable and noble. And I believe it should encourage many people if they're going through a divorce watching this, or their kids or separate homes, they never were married, just to be encouraged and to continue to do things. And you don't have to be a counselor to be a great step parent. And I really want to encourage you in that and say thank you for doing it for kids, because it's just a need, no matter for that kid or not. And it's a great light in the community for people to see of how to be a step parent and stepmom in a way that is different.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know that I deserved all those words. I always say that my stepson helped raise me. So
Yeah.
um but we grew together. I'll say
Yeah.
that.
Kids definitely
And
do
I've
that.
yeah, I've loved having him in my life. So
That's awesome. Well, I won't keep you any longer. I know you got things to do and all, and I don't want to make these go too long. I can talk all night, but I really appreciate you coming on. And maybe next time we can get into something in depth, or if you want to be back on again, I
sure.
appreciate you coming on and sharing that content. Thank you.
Thank you.